Hello and welcome back to the GorillaBiker. And today we're going to be going through something that quite a few people have asked me, and that is, would I recommend this bike to use as a track bike or a track and road bike? And yes and no. It's a complicated answer. It's actually not straightforward at all. I will start out by saying I absolutely love this bike. I will almost definitely never get rid of it. I honestly, genuinely think it is one of just the kind of coolest bikes that's out there of this age group. It's still affordable in a lot of ways. So yeah, it's a tough one. Do I recommend owning it? Yes. Do I recommend it as a track bike? Let's get into it a little bit. So the first thing I'm going to mention is, and I know I've harped on about this a lot in the past, the brakes. Brakes are uber important obviously on the road and just in daily riding, but they're also very, very important on the track. And that is one thing, and I mean specifically the GSX-R 750, because the 600 actually had the 4-piston brakes, which I would put onto this bike in a heartbeat, just purely from a feel perspective. The 6 pistons do work. They do stop the bike. That's undeniable. I've ridden it pretty fast and stopped it pretty quick, but they're not very good. Now, I get the question a lot is, did the Brembo brake master cylinder fix the problem? It did in a lot of ways, but it's still, 4-piston brakes in my experience are still better. Obviously I've never tried a combo of that brake master cylinder with the 4 pistons, but I will at some stage, because I will eventually put 4-piston brakes onto this bike. Definitely though, I wouldn't say don't ever buy it for the track because of the brakes. The 6 pistons work, they work fine. You're just probably not going to outbrake your buddy on his 4-piston brakes. Is that a bad thing? It depends. If you're out to beat him, then yes. If you're out to just have fun, then no. And like these brakes, they're easily rebuilt. They're easy to maintain. They come on and off quite easily. You can get nice stainless bolts, which I did get from ProBolt. So there's lots of bits available for it, and obviously the fact that that Brembo brake master cylinder just bolts onto your bike and works away fine with those 6 pistons is obviously a benefit. So yeah, I mean, I think a lot of this is going to come down to, do you want to make modifications? In stock form, I think you can get better track bikes for the same money. Obviously this also has carbs, so I would suggest getting the EFI one. We'll get to that in a minute. But there are better options. We'll talk about a few of them at the end, especially if you want a Gixxer. If you want a Gixxer for your track bike, there are other Gixxers out there that are probably better just for the track than one of these. So we talked about the brakes, and just to make it clear, I'm not saying they don't work for anyone who's going to jump down my throat. They do work. I just think you can do better. The other thing about a 1996 SRAD is the 750 is carbed. So 96, 97 were carbed, 98, 99 had fuel injection. If you are hell-bent on an SRAD, I would recommend getting fuel injection for the track, just because even the time I had the small crash on this, I did have to open back up everything and reset my float height on the carbs, because float heights, they're easily knocked off. It's only a little tiny little thingamajig, and that's how you set your float height. It's not really a big job ish. It's not really a hard job. It's a job you wouldn't need to do with EFI. You know what I mean? You could just pick the bike back up and away you go. Also, it does lend itself to, EFI lends itself to adding power easier. So if this is a track bike, you probably eventually want to throw like a power command or something onto it. Give yourself that ease of growth. Whereas for me on this 750, if I kept using it on the track, I would have to get like a Sigma jet kit or a Dyno jet kit. And again, then you're rejetting and rebalancing everything and trying to get your fuel right and fueling right. And it's just a hell of a lot more awkward than plugging in a power commander, bringing it to a dyno and getting it tuned. Obviously you can still bring carbs to a dyno, you can still get that done, but it's just a little bit harder if you go for a pre-injection bike over an injection bike. And again, there are bikes out there, what is that? There are bikes out there that are as cheap as buying an SRAD. Like you can buy a K1 to K3 Gixxer for around about the same money if you go to Germany from Ireland, which, I mean, realistically, the price of bikes in Ireland, that's probably where I would go if I was buying another bike for the track. I would just get get someone to bring it over from Germany, or go over there myself and ride it back, make a bit of an adventure out of it. Those are all options. But one of these, exactly with the carbs and everything, probably not. Me, because I have parts for the SRAD, I might go and get an EFI SRAD. And this video, I'm going to focus primarily on Gixxers, just because this is a Gixxer and that's what we're talking about. So yeah, that's another slight downside to the bike, is the carbs, and having to maintain those carbs and keep them clean. And obviously, if you have like a month off tracks, you have to make sure that you keep your bike running and such, because of the carbs, and they'll gunk up and whatnot. And injection is just easier for that. The next thing is suspension and wheels. So if you don't have a Dean to rob some wheels off like I did, thank you, Donor Hayabusa, long may you rest in the motorbike graveyard. They're actually quite hard to get. Same with suspension. So obviously you can buy second aftermarket shocks for this, but they're harder to find. You have less selection because it's an older bike. The front forks are actually not that easy to rebuild, and they can have problems like what happened to my upside down front forks, which is why I ended up with Hayabusa front forks. Again, which is fine, but it's just extra money that you don't need to spend. Whereas if you buy something like a K1, you have a lot more options, particularly if you get a K1 with conventional forks rather than upside down forks. The conventional forks are just that little bit cheaper to maintain and respring and whatnot. You're not looking at a cartridge kit, etc. The wheels are also, not only are they hard to find, but they're very heavy. So again, like K1 wheels, K1 to K3 wheels are that little bit lighter, and it's that little bit easier to adapt. Not to adapt, it's that little bit easier to find wheels for them. So again, it's just a little bit easier. The same. Anything else on the suspension? Yeah, so it's just parts. It kind of comes down to parts. Like obviously the upside down forks, you can still get cartridge kits from it. Like Dean from Motomax Suspension is currently trying to convince me to buy the Italian name, I can't remember it now, I'll put it on screen, cartridge kit for those Hayabusa forks, and I'm not going to say I'm not tempted. If I was a man with more free money, I would probably buy them. Same with the rear shock, I'd love to put a Maxton onto it. But it kind of, if you go for a track bike that's old, you really should spend some money getting your suspension looked at anyway, as I found out the hard way. So, you know, there's a little bit to be said for that, that no matter what you buy, if you're going for, you know, the 2,500–3,000 euro that you'd be spending on something like this, there's plenty of other things out there. And again, sorry, road and track, because obviously if you just buy a track bike, there are other options out there. If you get involved in one of the track bike pages, you'll find track bikes up for sale, and you can just buy one with lots of spare parts and stuff. If you're going down the route I went down, which is road and track, it's a little bit more complicated. The other thing then is kind of parts in general. So obviously I also added a steering damper. You cannot buy tanks for these things. Like if you damage your stock tank on a 750 SRAD, best of luck. You just can't find them, and if you do find them, they probably are rusty already. And as I found out, you just cannot buy the fuel sender plate anymore, the thing that the fuel pump mounts up to. You just can't buy them. There's one in Australia for a ridiculous amount of money, and I'm just not buying it. I'd love to have a spare. I have a spare tank. I'm just going to make up my own fuel sending unit at some point, so I have the spare one up and ready to go. But like, that is the one thing I got very lucky with when I did crash this bike, is I didn't damage the tank. Fairings can be repainted and whatever else, but if the tank had been damaged, I would have been a very sad Michael. Parts in general though, like you don't have many options for exhausts. Obviously if you want to upgrade your headers, you have to go for like K5, K8 headers or whatever, which it's not a straight swap. And that's kind of the thing, is everything is that little bit harder. You know, if you want to add power, you're rejetting carbs. If you want to change your headers to something more modern, you have to do a little bit of adaptation. It's not a straight swap. Very hard to find something that's a straight swap. I will shout out Dominator here though. Dominator, who I bought the exhaust off after I destroyed my first one, they still make bolt-on parts for this bike, and props to them. I absolutely love seeing that. I love seeing old stuff still being supported. So applause for Dominator. Do think that's very good. And same as Hyper Pro. You know, I could buy a straight bolt-on steering damper for this, which if you do end up buying an SRAD, whether it be carbed or injection, I would recommend one, because I don't know, I'll probably put clips up now where you can see it, but it does actually like to shake its head a little bit sometimes For what reason, I don't know. I know there's many theories out there. I don't know enough about it to comment. All I know is the steering damper, it just makes it not a problem, which is nice. So yeah, but parts in general, I mean, you can buy parts for this. Obviously the forks are standard upside down forks, they're 51mm, so you can buy clip-ons. Clip-ons aren't a problem. The master cylinder isn't a problem, but other parts might be. You know, if I was to crack my swing arm, that might be an issue to get a new one. And other kind of specialized parts like that in general. Obviously the fuel sender plate, you can't buy them. If I was to break a carb or a float bowl piece, that might be a problem as well. So it's just kind of, if you're looking at something that's road and track, just assume you're going to crash it at some point, and then think about what you have to replace. That is something I will advise you to do. I got very lucky with the fact I found like an OEM panel that was painted the right color from Belgium for €80. I would have paid double that. I would have paid triple that for an OEM one. And the same that Dominator still make the exhaust for it as well. So can you buy parts for it? Absolutely. Are they as freely available as something that's slightly newer but around about the same price to buy? No. And the reason for that is because these bikes are kind of collectible. People like them, like me. I love it. And that's why parts are kind of harder to get by, because people are hoarding them a little bit. Which, look, I can't fault. I mean, would I do it? Probably not. But someone has collected the parts for the bikes they love, then who am I to tell them not to do it? But, you know, there are good people out there like Kyle, Viking Biker, who had parts for this bike and did share them with me, because without him, this bike wouldn't have been back on the road. So, or back on the track. So again, just massive thanks to people like Kyle, and obviously Kyle out there, because he helped me immeasurably to get this thing back going, and had the confidence to bring it back to the track. So it's just something to be aware of. People do tend to hoard stuff a bit. It's hard to find seats. It's hard to find the big booty on it, which I don't know. You can right there. It's hard to find that. It's hard to find bits and pieces for it. You know, if your CDI went, that might be difficult. Stuff like that. It's just something to bear in mind. What I do want to shout out about this bike, if you do go for a carbed one, I can't comment on the injected one because I don't own one. This thing has been phenomenally reliable. I've been down the track, needed to re-level my floats. It was absolutely fine. Started and rode it back to the pits. I've been thrashing it, and it's absolutely fine. It doesn't even use that much fuel. One thing I did find out was I thought I had a problem. I thought it was my valves there recently. As it turns out, one of my coil boots had just worked itself a little bit up. Push that back down, and now the bike's fine. So let's see what it started. It is absolutely freezing cold. This bike has not been started for like 3 days, so I'm actually not expecting it to start very easily. But let's find out. So yes, that did use choke. Anyway, I'm gonna let this warm up. I don't like turning it off till it's heated up, and then we'll get back to talking. So just to show you, the choke is fully off. It's not even heated up yet. It's still like at 0 degrees Celsius, or you know, it's not reading temperature yet. Choke fully off, and it runs already. Honestly, this thing is super reliable. I couldn't start it and not give you a rev. Focus. So it is fully up to temperature. I love this bike. So there you have it. It's super reliable, and I absolutely love the sound of it with that Dominator exhaust. And that's with the baffle in. Not that the baffle's very big, but it's with the baffle in. Some things obviously that I do need to do. I have bought a manual cam chain adjuster for this, so I'll be fitting. I'll be fitting that. I also need to check the valve clearances at some point. I'm fairly certain they probably need doing at this point. You know, it was like 20-something thousand miles on the engine before I did some track days with it, and I mean, I pushed it as hard as I was comfortable with on the track, which was pretty hard, I think. So it probably need doing, and still yet it starts and runs fine. I would happily take this away on a trip with me, and I hope to soon. I do want to get the cam chain done, and I do want to check those valves because it would crush me if anything happened bad to this engine. Also, my clutch is completely gone from track days, so there is that. But still, yet this bike, it keeps it kicking. So all in all, would I recommend you buy one of these bikes for the road and track? It depends. Road and track. If you're okay with not being able to, like, you know, upgrade your power and all that easily, absolutely. I love this bike. I love the sound of the carbs. I love how it rides. It has not bothered me one little bit putting the money I've put into it. I don't think about how much money I've put into it, because then it might bother me, but it doesn't at the moment. I absolutely love this thing. It feels fantastic. It rides fantastic. It's pretty quick. Yeah, it's not as quick as a modern 750 or whatever else, but I don't care. It doesn't bother me. One thing I will say is, next year I probably will look at getting a track only bike, because I did really miss having this for the road. Obviously, as I got more comfortable on the track, I was more comfortable going a little bit faster, and the threat of falling off is always there. The threat of crashing is always there. So obviously I did put it into track fairings, took off all the expensive, hard to find bits like the headlight unit at the front and the you know, all that stuff, because if that got broken, it'd be very difficult to find. So for the track, not for me, but only because I absolutely love this thing and I want it forever. And I really miss not just having it ready for the road to bring out for a quick spin, because I absolutely love taking this thing out on a Saturday for like an hour or two. Yeah, it's never going to be a tour for me. I'm just too big. it's never going to be comfortable enough for someone my size. But do I recommend it overall? Absolutely. I love this bike. And if you're looking for something to get you into the track, but you also want to use it for the road, if you're a one bike person, do not be put off. This thing is fantastic. I just wanted to make all of the little bits that you might need to look at yourself available. So that's like the brakes, the suspension, all that, those little bits and pieces. You need to think about them. You need to be aware of them, because you will have to get your suspension looked at. If you're leaving it completely stock, just get it looked at, get it rebuilt. Have a look at your brakes, make sure your brakes are functioning correctly. You know, all of that stuff. Just be aware of it. Be aware it could be a problem, and make sure that you know what the condition of everything is. Make sure you can stop, and make sure that your suspension doesn't bottom out and throw you off the bike, etc. If it doesn't go, that's less of an issue. Worst case, you lose out in the price you paid to get into the track for the day. That's you know, so what? In the grand scheme of things, it'd be a hell of a lot worse if your brakes stopped working. I've always said it. It is so much more important to stop than go. And yeah, we'll leave it there, but just make sure your brakes work, please. They are so important. But yeah, overall, this bike, honestly, I know I said all the kind of negative things, but it's just, I want people to be realistic about these things. I think people get fanciful ideas about older bikes, and then they own one and realize how much work it is. I know how much work this is. I've done the work, and I'm gonna do more into the future, and it doesn't bother me one little bit. I absolutely love it, and it's worth every bit of it to me. But to someone else out there, it might not be. So that's just something to be aware of yourself. You have to ask yourself those questions, and you have to know the answers to them. Are you prepared to put the money in? Like, you can buy quick shifters, you can buy rear sets, you can buy exhausts, you can buy spare parts. They just might be that little bit harder to find, and they might be that little more expensive to buy, because they're obviously just not on a standard production bike that's still made. That's the caveat there. But overall, this thing has been super reliable and so much fun. I will remember this year of track days for the rest of my life, because, like I said, it was a dream of mine to get out and do track stuff and think I'm fast in my head, which I did for a couple of minutes at one point. So that was worth it for me. Childhood dream ticked off, and you know, it just made me love this bike even more. So this will be in and around the channel forever, as long as the channel is going, more than likely. So yeah, if you watched, thank you very much for watching. Special thank you, as always, to all of my patrons. I know some of you like this bike. I don't think everyone likes the bike, and I know a lot of people didn't like the track day videos. But for those of you who did, I hope you got something from this, and I hope you got something from all the track day videos. And thank you very much for watching them all throughout the year. I do like sharing these things with people, so thank you for watching those and commenting on them. I do appreciate it. And yeah, until next time, thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions on this bike or anything around this bike, leave them down in the comments. I will get back to you. And yeah, thank you again. Adios. Outro crew. If you could pick one track bike for me, just any bike at all that you'd like to see me ride on the track at some point in my life, what would it be? Let me know in the comments. Let me know. I know what I'd like, but I'm not going to tell you yet. I'll tell you when you answer me first. Yeah, I need to go make dinner now, so bye.